This video is presented to you by Manscaped. Manscaped and the College GameTime YouTube channel have partnered for a holiday campaign. And I want to tell you about their featured product, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, which you can get at a significantly discounted rate using the promo code UNDERDOGS20. Promo code UNDERDOGS20. I received mine in the mail over the weekend, and I got to tell you, it is the best grooming device I have ever used. With an advanced dual head system and skin-safe blades, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is a next-gen groomer that'll give you the power to trim, shave, and shape to your liking. Manscaped is the gold standard for male grooming. So act now and utilize the promo code UNDERDOGS20. That's promo code UNDERDOGS20 for a generous discount on all products over at manscaped.com. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the College Underdogs Podcast. I'm your host, Trey Smith, and I got several things I want to talk about today. I don't even know what order I want to talk about them. I've got a basketball update specific to Memphis. Tulane hired their head coach. In fact, his introductory press conference is wrapping up or going on like right now as I'm recording this. We had some G5 representatives in the CFB Awards, and then, of course, Army-Navy happened. So those are the topics for today's show. What order they go in, I don't know. We're just going to get going. But before I get into it, if you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, share it with a friend, man. Listen, if you know of someone who's a fan of the AAC, of a team in the AAC, or just in the mid-major group of 5 underdog conferences in general, please share this channel with them. Get them to subscribe. Let them know we have daily content, or at least Monday through Thursday, full episodes, and then different types of content throughout the weekend. Send it over to them. And comment at the end. You know the drill. And then if you're listening on one of the streaming platforms, please leave a 5-star rating. Leave a positive review. I would greatly appreciate it. And without further ado, let's start with basketball, man. Let's just start basketball. Memphis. So to bring you up to speed on Memphis, right? DeAndre Williams, his waiver or whatever it was for another year of eligibility got denied. They had brought in Jordan Brown this cycle through the transfer portal. And just in case you don't know Jordan Brown, okay, he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. He was actually recruited to Nevada. He committed to Nevada as a 5-star recruit out of high school. And if I remember correctly, he was a McDonald's All-American. So a McDonald's All-American commits to Nevada. You want to know why he committed to Nevada? Because their head coach at the time was a guy by the name of Eric Musselman, the current Arkansas Razorback head coach. So Musselman recruits Brown to Nevada. If I remember right, I'm pretty sure he set the bench that whole year. Nevada made a tournament run the following season. Bolts to Arkansas. Jordan Brown hops in the transfer portal, goes to Arizona. Not real sure what happened at Arizona, but he ended up transferring, I think, to Louisiana. I want to say he was a Sun Belt Player of the Year or an accolade similar to that. Transfers to Memphis, and now it's sounding like he's out. I don't know. I was kind of trying to follow it over the weekend like there was an illness or something of that nature. If you are a Memphis Hoops fan and you are a little more tapped in with what's going on with Jordan Brown, please in the comments put it in there. Let me know. But it sounds like he won't be returning. Okay, which opens up a void for Memphis basketball. Okay, if you've watched them play at all this season, they have a lot of firepower, they have a lot of talent, they have a lot of athleticism, they have a lot of length. Where they've gotten beat is on the boards. So, obviously, DeAndre Williams would have been a big-time help in that department, but he was denied. Now Jordan Brown's leaving, and so as all this is happening, Kansas State dismisses, I should say, Naquan Tomlin, who was a part of their Elite Eight run. Kid from Harlem. He was a JUCO guy. He's about a 10-6 average guy playing in the Big 12 last year, arguably the best basketball conference in the country, on an Elite 8 team. He's dismissed. He enters the portal, and now there's links that he could be transferring to Memphis, and he would be able to play. I don't know if he would have to wait till the semester break. I think that's how that would work, but just in time for conference play. So, interesting story here to follow, because it's like it's like this perfect storm could be happening in Memphis's favor. And I haven't followed the Naquan Tomlin story too closely. I know he got arrested. I know it had to do with some fight, I think it was. I don't want to mischaracterize the situation, but if I recall correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong. And then essentially the administration of the university are the ones I think that had stepped in and essentially made like this executive decision to dismiss him from the team. Well, anyways, he's in the portal now. I think he's like 6'9", 6'10". You know, he's a guy, I think if he's playing on Memphis's roster, they win that Ole Miss game, personally. But while we're in this basketball vein, I do have a question for you in regards to the AAC. Is this a 2-bid league? Like, I was really hoping for 3 or 4 bids. And I don't know about you, but from my vantage point, this has been a very disappointing start to the basketball season for the AAC. With the exception of Memphis and FAU, there's been a lot of disappointments. I know Tulane's hanging around at the 3rd spot right now. You got Wichita State behind them. Wichita State's got a big one coming up with Kansas, I think, in a couple weeks. You know, I feel like Wichita State and Temple need to be good for this conference to be a good basketball conference. But then USF, okay, they've had their ups and downs early. They had a big win over FSU over the weekend. I think that they're a team that if they just, you know, if their coach is able to establish the culture, you know, I think they could be okay. Don't know if it's going to happen this year. Remember, he was at Kennesaw State, and I remember Kennesaw State, Abdur Rahim. I don't remember who they were beating, but it was halftime, and they were up on a team they shouldn't have been up on, or they were playing them tight, something like that. And he got asked, how do you sustain this for the second half of this game? And he said, we're just going to stick to the same old boring habits. And he's like, basically, that's what we built our culture on. It's the same old boring disciplined habits. And I think if he has enough time, USF could be good. But just overall, this season right now, man, this basketball season has been very disappointing to me, with the exceptions other than Memphis and FAU. But I think everyone expected them to be in the tournament come March to begin with. I want to see some more representation, because the conference just lost the New Year's Six bid. That's money that they're missing out on. And then, you know, 2 bids in the tournament. I mean, unless both teams make a run to the Final Four, you know, that's, again, a lot of money being left on the table. So, anyways, let's move on. CFB Awards, College Football Postseason Awards, had 2 G5 representatives, as I said at the top of the show. Had Graham Nicholson, the kicker for Miami of Ohio, winning the Groza Award. And then Trey Taylor, straight out of Frisco, Texas, played at Lone Star High School, safety at Air Force, won the Thorpe Award. So congratulations to both of those guys. The Mountain West Conference and the MAC pulling in some postseason awards, keeping the underdog conferences on the map in that department. But hopefully one day the AAC will be back to winning those types of awards. I don't know if you remember, I mean, one year the kid from Tulsa won like 2 or 3. The defensive back from Cincy won the Thorpe Award, I think. Not Sauce, but the guy that was on the other side. Was it Bryant? And there's some other ones I'm missing, but anyways. So speaking of AAC football, the next thing on my list here is Tulane's coaching hire, John Sumrall from Troy. This, to me, is an absolute grand slam hire. This is a guy who not only has SEC pedigree, okay? I mean, he's been an assistant at Kentucky. He's been an assistant at Ole Miss. played college football in the SEC at Kentucky in the early 2000s. I think he was there just after Tim Couch. I don't know if him and Tim Couch actually played together, but he was in that era. So maybe even, was it Woodson or Lorenzen, one of those guys. But played linebacker at Kentucky and took over a Troy program that had back-to-back losing seasons. 3 consecutive seasons missing a bowl game. And in year 1, goes 12-2, wins the conference. Year 2, goes 11-2, wins the conference. Probably 12-2, but he won't be coaching the bowl game. So that's 23 wins in 2 years for a program that had 3 straight losing seasons. I'm not so sure Tulane didn't win this coaching cycle overall, but definitely as it pertains to the whole addition by subtraction principle. It sucked for them to lose Willie Fritz to Houston. But now when you look at who they just brought in, if you're a Tulane fan watching this right now or listening, I mean, are you not more excited about the head coach you have leading the program at this point versus had Fritz stayed? I mean, Fritz was getting up there in age. I don't know how many more years he has in him. I know one of the things that people liked about Fritz was there felt like there was some stability there. Now, obviously, he disrupted that by taking the Houston job. But, I mean, he'd been there 7-8 years. Just had finally gotten the program to turn a corner a season ago. Kept that momentum this season, even though they lost to SMU in the conference championship. But still, an 11-win season. Heck of a year for Tulane. I think who they just brought in is a guy that can even build and do even more in however long he's going to be here. At Tulane, I should say. Because that's the only downside, I think, to Summerall being your coach is you don't know how long he's going to be your coach, right? Is he going to be there 1 year, 2 year, 3 years? Because every single year as these SEC jobs come open, I think he's going to be a guy on everyone's short list, even this current cycle, okay? He was one of the candidates for Mississippi State. He was one of the candidates. In fact, he was likely going to be the guy. Had Stoops gone to A&M, he was likely going to be the guy that became the head coach at Kentucky. So 2 SEC jobs that he was high on the list. And that's who is now coming in to replace Willie Fritz at Tulane. Like I said, I think it's an absolute grand slam. I think with his coaching background and what he's done these past 2 years as a head coach, I mean, if I'm a Tulane fan, I'm ecstatic about this hire. If you're a fan of the Green Wave, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. What's the talk around town? Is there a buzz? Is there excitement? And, what is his ceiling at Tulane? I mean, this is a guy that can continue to build on the success of the last 2 seasons, which isn't just good for the program in general, but as a program that's aspiring to be in that power conference discussion, this is a guy, in my opinion, that can get you there. That at least can get you to where your program is continuously brought up in those conversations. And then finally, to end this show, I'm going to talk about Army-Navy. Man, just the pageantry of that game, the atmosphere of that game, the electricity of that game just never fails. In fact, one of my bucket list items is to not just attend that game, but to cover that game as a part of the College Underdogs podcast. With both of those teams being AAC teams for next season's matchup, I'm going to just speak it, put it out there that I will be at the 2024 Army-Navy game on the sidelines, covering that game as a part of the College Underdogs podcast right here on the College GameTime YouTube channel. But yeah, man, great game, excellent game. There's 2 things I think I want to talk about on this. One from the Navy standpoint and one's from the Army standpoint. Army's is more like looking ahead. Navy's is more like what the heck. So that final drive that Navy was putting together, where they got into their tempo, they were spreading it out a little bit, moving the ball. Best their offense really looked all day, really. They get inside the 10-yard line, and this is where I'm like, what are they doing? They were actually maybe inside the 7-yard line. Threw the ball, which I get. They're out of timeouts. 30, 35 seconds left. So they get to the 2-yard line on 4th and goal and run a QB sneak, QB push, tush push, whatever you want to call it. What are they thinking? I just didn't understand that play call from that far out. I mean, that's like lining up for a 2-point conversion and going QB sneak. That's about how far away they were from the goal line. My thought was, you had time. I know you were out of timeouts, but my thought was you get inside the 5-7 yard line, 30 seconds left, get back in your under center looks, run some triple option, your bread and butter, and see if you can catch them off guard. I mean, you've been in the spread, running tempo up to that point, and then all of a sudden you get into your, double wing flex bone look and run a triple option, whatever. That's what I thought. Or at least on that 4th and goal play from the 2-yard line, if you're going to run the ball there, stick to what you know. Run what you know. Give yourself multiple options on that play to get in the end zone. But it is what it is. I wasn't crazy about that play call. Even if they would have scored there, it didn't guarantee anything because they still would have had to have converted the 2-point conversion because I think they were down 17-9 at that point. But either way, it was a heck of a game, heck of a finish. And then on the Army side of things, what I will be looking forward to seeing next season is what does this Army offense look like in year 2 under this new scheme? Right? I talked about this earlier in the season where they run, they have a lot of the same staples of what an Army offense typically looks like with the triple option, trap option, some of the different things they do up front on their run scheme. It's just out of a lot of different formations, more spread out, more of a, spread out type option attack, still have some under center, still have some heavy looks. I think throughout the course of the season, it was kind of a roller coaster. You saw it really come alive in flashes, like the UTSA game as a perfect example. The Army offense just was clicking like crazy in that game, and UTSA couldn't stop it. Then they had some other games. You could even consider the Navy, but Army-Navy's always like that. But they had some other games where they couldn't get anything going. So I'm curious to see because I think it's a very unique scheme, and I really like it. And it reminds me a little bit of what Liberty does with Chadwell and sort of his option scheme out of the pistol and spread sets. He did the same thing at Coastal Carolina. I've been a fan since then. Similar to that, has some differences. So I'm curious to see as they come into the conference with this unique scheme, year 2 within it, what does their offense look like next year? I project they'll be one of the top run offenses in the country, probably one of the top run offenses in the conference. But yeah, man. So let me know your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the Memphis basketball stuff? What are your thoughts on the Summerall hire at Tulane? What are your thoughts on Army-Navy? And then looking ahead to next year with both those teams being in the conference, even though that won't be a conference game. And that's it for me today. Trey Smith, College Underdogs, signing off.